Mortgage demand slips, all the while consumer debt tops $17 trillion for the first time ever. This is what we talk about all the time. If you really wanted to rein in inflation, prices going up, inflation is increased currency supply. That's it. That is it. People get this confused with logistic problems, with supply shortages, things like that. It's not inflation. Inflation is confused often with the prices going up. It's a symptom and a cause, right? So logistics, things like, those are symptoms. Inflation is caused by printing too much currency. It's too much currency in the system, too much fugazis. I don't give a flying crap where it is. I don't care if it's on banks' balance sheets, macro guy. I don't care where it is. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. You are fooling yourself if you think that it matters if it's stuffed away somewhere else, because guess what? People are loaning against those assets. They're doing things against those assets because, well, I've got a lot of bank reserves, or I've got a lot of this, I've got a lot of that. They're doing things that obfuscate reality, just like the BTFP, the Bank Term Funding Program that we just had. People are like, well, they're not directly bailing people out. Those fees are coming from somewhere. They're coming from somewhere, right? Sorry, keep yelling in here. So they're coming from somewhere, and they're coming from you. They're coming from you. So in order to understand what's truly happening, we have to understand, number one, the definitions of things. Weaponization of language has really screwed things up for people, and it's made things very confusing, which is the plan. The plan is to confuse people so much. If you read The Conspirators' Hierarchy, The Committee of 300, or if you read Tragedy and Hope, if you read the Communist Manifesto, if you read The Naked Communist, if you read all these books about the people that are running the world right now, they tell you in plain English, we are trying to confuse people so that way they eventually quit. We break the American spirit. We break the backs of the people, the will, and they give up and they go home. They shut their mouths. They're disenfranchised. They don't vote. They aren't engaged. They don't step up in their local politics. And then we can take over. Globalists can take over. This is the plan. This is not something that Brandon just made up over the last 10 years, and I'm going to go opine about it, write a blog about it, and do videos about it. Why do you think I'm so passionate about it? I wouldn't be passionate about it if I just made it up out of thin air, because it wouldn't make sense. It's like jokes, like comedy. It's only funny because it comes from the kernel of the truth. If I just make things up out of nowhere, it's not funny because no one can relate to it. Just like this. It's coming from somewhere, just like much of what happens in politics now, in the fiat politics, right? None of the incentives are aligned. So there's really either two reasons many people, like, for example, the education system. The education system is so bad, and it's been so bad for so long, you would think, there's a lot of Harvard, Yale, Ivy League educated people everywhere running the system in higher places of power, in government, running the teachers associations and unions. How come they can't figure out that we need to learn about money? How come they don't figure out that we need to learn about our history? How come they haven't figured out how to teach us about balancing our budgets or accounting or bookkeeping? Could it be one of two reasons? Yes, it's one of two reasons. It's either they're dumb or it's an agenda. And neither option are good. Pick your poison carefully, right? I am not the first person to understand there's a problem with the education system. So what do? We created more centralization. We created the Department of Education with Jimmy Carter, and test scores have gone through the floor since the induction and since the introduction of the education system. It's only increased, which it was in 1979, which is around the time we screwed up the money, which is now fed into this even more, where they steal your time and energy through inflation and directly through taxes. They steal it through inflation. That way they don't have to ask you. Taxes, they do have to ask you, generally. And inflation, they don't. And they don't have to tax you, or they don't have to tell you. And now they get to send your time and energy, your wealth, away to Ukraine, or they get to send it to teachers unions, or they get to send it to gender transitioning surgeries in Afghanistan, or they get to pay off 10% for the big guy. This is how fiat currencies work. They steal your time and energy without having to ask you and get your approval, and they take that cash and they just print it up out of nowhere. How do you think these $2 trillion omnibus bills come into fruition, or the Inflation Reduction Act? That money, that cash just came from somewhere. Part of it is they actually steal it from other parts of the government, right? They steal your Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. That's why those programs are bankrupt. Hello. We've done many videos on that. Go check those out. They're bankrupt because they take cash from those programs, and then the other half, or another 2/3 or a third, they print up out of nowhere, effectively taxing you, which is directly taxing you over time through higher costs, because now the costs of everything go up. because there's more currency fighting for the same amount of resources. So now the people have to raise their prices in order to fend people off, or else these things go out of business, or these people lose all their product, and then they're sitting there with nothing to do, and then their business goes kaput and collapses. Hence why price controls don't work, because if you price cap something, now they're all sold out, everything's out, or if someone rents their building or buys all their widgets, and now they're sitting there with nothing to do. And now they have no product and they have no income coming in. They have no revenue. This is why price controls don't work. And this is why printing currency ultimately leads to just printing more and more and more. The 30 trillion in debt will get to 50 trillion, and then 75 trillion, and 100 trillion, and then eventually a quadrillion. And people laugh all the time. But I will guarantee you one Bitcoin right now that in 10, 20 years, we will be at a quadrillion dollars in debt. I guarantee it. So buckle up, get ready. Food storage, energy, water, purification skills, maybe some bartering, guns, ammo, lead, Bitcoin, gold, silver, and building community. Get ready, because we're entering that time. But for those that are prepared, we will thrive. We will thrive. And we will be the ones to rebuild the country in the image of the Constitution. Liberty, freedom, the Bitcoin white paper, sound money and freedom that can't be effed with. That governments cannot debase, they cannot print more of it. They have to answer to the people at all times. This is what happens in a fiat world. Politics screws with the money because people can't be trusted eventually, and you get people in power who screw the system up and want power, and they take it from people. And then this cycle just keeps going through this doom vortex, this doom loop down the drain. Worse and worse and worse, more chaos, more division, more hate, and eventually it collapses. This is how all empires fail. So buckle up, let's get ready. Please share this out, because the algorithm hates truth. They're not gonna do us any favors. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. It's financial, or it's freedom advice. This is freedom advice, not financial advice. Please question everything with boldness, even the existence of God himself. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.